Welcome to Pitch Slapped. I'm Dan, this is Stefan, and we are joined today by our friend Rob, who has a story idea to share with us. So, Rob, take it away. Tell us what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Oh, God, we're just jumping right in. All right, so hi. So I guess my story, my working title for this story is Strays. That'll make sense later. And so basically, I just guess we'll start with the outer part. So the world I'm building is a world that's very similar to our own, but I want the one major difference in it to be is that metahumans are just a normal part of life. I think I was looking for the number one, one in every 25 people is a metahuman. That's I guess the base number. So you spread that across the world, and you got a fair amount of people with special abilities. And I just kind of want that to permeate history and all the mythologies and major world events. If you could look at them through a different lens, you could see how metahumans could have caused them. So for example, the Greek mythology and gods and stuff. So back then they would have been oh yeah, that's weird. That person's not normal. But in part nah, that kid, he could just breathe underwater. He's not a mermaid. Totally normal. So kind of think of world history through that lens, and with mythology and monsters and all that kind of stuff. Are we following me?
Yes.
Oh, very much so.
We are there.
So my story is set in present times, and it's in the fictional city of Crescent Mills. I figured a good fictional city with no established boundaries or geographic location is kind of the best way to go about it. It's kind of like Townsville and the Powerpuff Girls, how that place had everything. They had an observatory, a forest, an ocean, kind of one of those places that doesn't make any sense but makes complete sense. And at the center of my story is my main character. His name is Riley Daniels. And before you yell at me, yes, I'm using the name Riley. Everyone I tell that is that's an awful name. No one's name is Riley in real life. His name is Riley. I don't have a choice about that. So we're throwing that out there. And Riley is 18 years old. I wanted my main characters to not be high schoolers because I feel that's been done a lot. And also, I just didn't want to have to establish the fact of why they're not constantly in school. So, they're 18, freshman year of college, that age is for my main character, Riley. And Riley is a metahuman, and he doesn't know that at the beginning of the book. He developed his powers very early in the story, but his ability, he is pathokinetic. Does anyone know what that is for the class?
No.
All right, so pathokinetic is the ability to manipulate emotions and emotion energy. So that's the kind of wheelhouse I want him in. So did you guys watch Teen Titans growing up?
Yeah.
Think Raven, that kind of
okay.
energy, that kind of thing. But I also wanted to build on more of that because emotion is a very broad subject, and I kind of wanted to people say oh, your emotions give you strength, they give you focus, and I was what if that's literal? So emotions give you strength, which would lead to enhanced physical capabilities and durability. That way in these fight scenes, I can have him be thrown against stuff and not break instantly. So that's where my mind goes with it. And emotions, you can use them to overwhelm people, and so energy blasts. So kind of that's my thinking when in terms of powers and stuff. Am I going too fast? I feel I'm talking really fast.
Nope. Perfect speed, Rob. Perfect speed. I'm digging it.
All right. And then I have Riley's best friend. Her name is Rose Danvers. If you notice, their initials are RD because that's part of their backstory. They met in grade school, best friends because their names were right next to each other. And, that's bestest of homies. That's their life. And Rose, she's kind of my love letter to all my favorite badass ladies in television films. So the Buffy Summers, the Nikitas. I want her to just be a deadly, deadly teenager for no reason. It's just her favorite thing to do is just be violent. She likes violent hobbies. She's into archery. She's into martial arts. She's just ready to fight anyone at any time. But she's also have her with a genius level intellect, and she's an inventor, and she's developing her own technologies. So I kind of want her to be a Swiss Army knife of beauty and grace and intelligence, but also she's gonna punch you in the face.
So she's Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock of my story.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Then my third like main character who's gonna fall into the story, his name is Spencer Monroe. Spencer and his sibling Elle Monroe. Their name is Elle Monroe because I can't decide if Elle is a boy, a he, a she, or a they yet, because Elle was originally two different characters, but we'll get to that. But right now it's Spencer. Spencer, his ability, I also like some of them have like superhero code names, and I don't know why, but like it helped me when I was creating them. So Spencer's superhero code name was Spectre. So I have his abilities down as like density shifting. So the ability to phase through objects, but also the ability to increase his physical density. So like he could be essentially become bulletproof. And the ability to camouflage himself. So almost going, so invisibility, but like if you're looking real close, you can see him, but most people wouldn't notice it. So you can have some fun with that. And also he has the ability to move silently wherever he is. So, you know, he's kind of like a ghost, a specter. See, it all ties back together. And then Elle. So Elle is an interesting character because I originally had them split into two different characters as twins. But I was like, that's too many characters for the sake of too many characters. So I condensed them down back into one. So right now their name's just Elle. And Elle has a genius level intellect as well. He's about 27. He's a little older than the rest of them. And his ability is energy absorption and transduction. Does anyone know what transduction is?
No.
Pass.
Okay. What? I'm trying to, you know. So
educate me, Rob.
His ability is to absorb energy. So like solar energy, kinetic energy, electricity, whatever. And then he's able to take that energy and change it into something else and then discharge it. So like absorbing electricity and then releasing it back out as heat. Okay. So things like that. So when you take that on top of a genius level intellect, and you can just kind of, I want him to kind of be like the big gun, you know, he's coming in, he's going to lay down the law. And Elle is also a former Olympus agent, and we'll get to Olympus later, but like keep that in your mind. Okay. So those are like my main characters. Oh, my computer's doing a thing. So my basic story unwraps with Riley and Rose. Oh, let me take another step back. So for my story, I want it to be kind of like a story within a story. It's kind of one of my favorite like storytelling techniques. So I want this story to be told from Riley in a police, like giving a police interview, like kind of like the aftermath of like the movie and be like, yo, how did we get here? And I want Riley to like start telling the detective, be like, okay, so it started a year ago. So like that's the framing device for the story. So police interview, like how we got there. So year pack, the story starts with Riley and Rose going on a school trip to visit the mayor's office of Crescent Mills as part of like a social studies class. I don't know, a college class that involves them going there to study local government. But when they arrive, there's been a story has broken that at the local prison for metahumans, that a bunch of the inmates have been sold off into a human trafficking ring. And Riley's father, who is the mayor and former chief of police, is suspect number one. And I want that story to break as the story begins.
Damn.
So, and then there'll be like Riley and Rose will get whisked away to the office because like his dad's like, yo, we got to talk real quick. I'm pulling you out of class, even though he's a college student, but you know, follow along. And they get pulled out of class. And that's when I want Apex to assault the mayor's office. And who is Apex? I'm so glad you've asked. So Apex is kind of, so I have like my good guys, my bad guys, and then like my bad guys. And Apex is my bad guys. So Apex is an organization of metahumans who, so hold on. Do you guys know about Yellowstone National Park?
Yeah.
About the thing with the wolves there. Do you know the story of the wolves of Yellowstone? Okay, so way back when, Yellowstone National Park actually had a lot of problems. They had overpopulation of deer, and because of that, like the deer were eating everything, so nothing was growing. It was basically like a dead biome. So what they did is they introduced a pack of wolves into Yellowstone, and the wolves brought down the deer population, which in turn made everything else about that area flourish. So Apex is an organization with their kind of mission statement being like, metahumans are the next evolutionary step. And if we stopped like limiting ourselves as metahumans and just like let ourselves loose, the world would flourish for it, regardless of what other regular humans had to say. And if we stop like subjecting ourselves to their world and their rules, like the world would just be better. So like that's the philosophy of Apex. Like Apex, we're the top of the species. We can change the world if we wanted to. So like, let's get on with it. And obviously they're not very excited about like their fellow metahumans being sold off into human trafficking. And the leader of Apex, one of the people they love, was one of the people who was sold and ended up being killed as part of this ring. So obviously they're upset. And the leader, his name is Zach Duval, codename Zephyr. He's a former Olympus agent. And his ability is kenokinesis. Does anyone know what that is? There's going to be a lot of kinesis words here. I'm going to test you guys.
You said telekinesis?
Kenokinesis. Keno.
Can we have a hint real quick?
It's got to do something with movement, I feel like, or transference or something because of the kinesis part. But I don't know what the beginning part.
Kenokinesis is also known as atmospheric pressure manipulation. So what that means is he is essentially creating vacuums.
Okay.
And by creating vacuums, it also manipulates the air particles around him so he can do things like create tornadoes, change atmospheric pressure to create storms, things like that. And his codename is Zephyr with Olympus. But as part of his character, I kind of want his whole personality to be able to like misdirect, because so like the name Zephyr comes from Greek mythology as a god of wind. But his power doesn't actually relate to wind. It's actually something else, but he's masking it with the wind. And like, so kind of like a trickster type of guy.
Got you.
Kind of that. And he's the leader. If you're a visual learner, I kind of imagine him as like a very gruff, like almost like Jensen Ackles kind of gruff looking guy.
Got you.
And like personality wise, I kind of want him to be like the Mad King, you know, like someone who could go from very calm to very like blisteringly angry in like a split second. So like maniacal almost in a way. And then he is supported by Maria Monroe. As you've noticed, the Monroe name has come up a lot. And, you know, we'll get into that. But her ability is psionic mind control and psychic possession. So she manipulates people like puppets by splitting her consciousness and then like inserting it into other people, kind of like a hive mind.
Damn.
So yeah, she's not a nice lady, but you know, she has her reasons. And finally, they are backed up by Richard Torrance. His name is codename Scald. And I have him as a pyrokinetic with some energy matter manipulation abilities going on. And I kind of have him in my mind as like this white guy with like a man bun and just like a symbol of cultural appropriation. I don't know. That's just what he seems like in my head. Like angry white guy in a man bun. I have him with like a dragon tattoo across his face because like the Japanese dragons, you know, he's a firebend, all that kind of stuff.
So like Shia LaBeouf?
Yeah, just like a douchebag white guy who ended up with fire powers and like, I am the dragon. Like one of those guys.
I see.
So those are the people who are going to assault my mayor's office. And Riley's going to get his powers during this traumatic event after watching them kill his father. So, you know, all the trauma. And with his powers being related directly to his emotions, this is literally like a very out of control situation for him with all the heightened emotional states of him and his best friend, you know, about to be violently murdered after they just watched his father being violently murdered. So, you know, that's kind of the setup for how he gets his abilities and how the story is going to start. But because of this incident, it creates a type of tension within the city because you have Riley as someone who the town didn't believe he was just a completely normal human before, whose father was selling off metahumans. So the metahumans don't trust him. And then on the other end, you have him as a metahuman. And his father was just the mayor of the city was just assassinated, a regular human. So now regular humans don't trust him because he's a metahuman. So that's kind of like Riley's state of mind for most of the story. Like the town doesn't trust him. The only person he really has is Rose, and he has a brother. I don't have a name for his brother yet, but he's in there. I'm thinking Donovan. He has a brother. His name is Donovan. Yeah, so that's where we're at with that so far. And then finally, our last players on the board is Olympus. So in this world, there are no superheroes. They outlawed that many years ago. Like no one even tries anymore, because if you try it, you're going to jail forever. Because I think the Marvel movies have taught us that superheroes don't really care about property destruction. And like the same with like shows like The Boys. Like you see how many people die when they actually try to save things. Like so, it's like superheroes are not a thing. And instead, what they have are things that kind of function like private securities or like auxiliary law enforcement agencies. So Olympus is one of them. And I have an idea with Olympus. I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere, or like if I do other stories, but it's very broad concept kind of thing with like how like mythology ties back, how I mentioned like the mythology tie back. So instead of like Mount Olympus has always been like a group of metahumans who've worked together since like way back in ye olden days. So kind of like I don't want to say secret society that's like gone through the ages, because like everyone kind of knows about it. But like
Illuminati of
yeah, kind of like Illuminati, but everyone knows.
Yeah.
But like so like in today's day and age, they're just masquerading as like a private security firm. But like I don't know if I'm gonna like bring up those concepts in this first story, but like it's an idea I have in the back of my head. But the main people we need to care about for this story are Dante Vickers, the head of security at Olympus, also known as Panzer. Does anyone know what a Panzer is?
Isn't that like, you remember Zoids? They had a Panzer robot?
I remember Zoids. I remember Zoids a lot. I think about Zoids a lot sometimes. But a Panzer is technically a type of German tank.
Okay, that was my next guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Sorry, keep going.
No, it's all right. So his ability is he absorbs kinetic energy. So like anytime something hits him, and so like you shot a gun at him, the force of that gun, he'd absorb that energy into his body, and the bullet would just kind of fall to the ground. Same thing if like you hit him or you got hit by a bus or whatever, he would more or less be unscathed by that. Okay. But the trade-off is the more energy he absorbs, the heavier he becomes. And the way he gets rid of that is he discharges it into like a blast of kinetic energy that comes out of his hand, and that kind of resets him. So, you know, tank damage and then like throw it back. And that's kind of the idea I had with him. And then we have Dr. Rachel Forrest. She's head of research at Olympus. And, you know, story spoiler, she's kind of like the big bad. She's the lady behind it all, you know. She's like trying to, you know, she's been buying metahumans, taking them apart, learning how their powers work, and trying to figure out how to transfer them to other people. Because, you know, if you want to be the top security firm in the world, if you can create your own soldiers, you know, you got it. You got the market cornered. And finally, we have James Brooke. He is my last operative of Olympus, and he's kind of gonna be like my mysterious guy in the background. Like no one really knows what's going on with him. And his ability is crystallokinesis, and his code name is Obsidian. So I want him to be creating like giant black crystals. He just like they burst out of the ground at his command. You know, that's kind of the ability he's going for. And yeah, those are all my major players and pieces. Does anyone have any questions before I continue?
Please continue. Oh no, Stefan. Yeah, you had a hand. I saw your hand.
I have some quick questions for you, Rob, and some comments if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So, firstly, Dr. Rachel Forrest, right? I like that you're making her like the heavy, right? Like oh, you figure she's educated, right? You're just the lab person. But just because she's not like the forefront, or maybe she is the forefront, doesn't mean she doesn't hold the strings. So when you were thinking about this character and naming her, right? Who did you envision, or who did you take? Like, I liked her from this, her from that, like to make her.
I mean, I've always loved the Ice Queen motif. I've always loved it in everything I've ever seen. Whether it's like Weiss from Ruby or fucking. who are some other really good ice queen, or just like me, like the mean girl ice queen, like fucking Cheryl from Riverdale, or
Regina George.
Regina George. Yes, the ultimate ice queen. So yeah, like some of them, it's been like a different, like some of them I'll get an idea of like a god or something, and I'll build their powers like that, or some of them I'll grab like a trope and I'll like try and run with that. Like Panzer, I was like, oh, I want one of the bad guys to be like this big brooding like muscle head, and like how can I build a power around that? And for Rachel, it was like I want her to be a stone cold bitch, and she's gonna be the cold calculating scientist. She also has a powers. She's a cryokinetic. So yeah, I just went full ice queen with that.
Right on. And then I guess the other thing, right, of seeing so many like superhero films, right, and I know you read comics as well. Did you find it hard to think about like powers that people might not necessarily have seen?
Yeah, that was an issue because like I kind of been living on like what was it called? It's like fandom.com, and one of like the sub fandoms has like a power, is like just like powers listing from like all the TVs and movie shows and like all the different abilities and like capabilities, applications. And like, so for instance with Riley, like the Raven, like Green Lantern to a degree, we've seen powers like this before. So like for him, I wanted to focus on the way he applies that ability.
Right.
Like, so it might be a power we've seen before, but how he applies it to himself, I wanted to be different. So for the way Riley fights is, I actually wanted him not to like be like flying around or focus on like shooting lasers. I wanted him to be like a high mobility, high speed, like brawler, and uses his energy fields to like create force fields to like box his opponents in and limit their movement while at the same time giving him added mobility. So like, say he's coming at you at a hallway, he's gonna like throw up a barrier behind you so you can't retreat any further, throw up things on the side so he can jump up on those walls to use that for like extra momentum and extra mobility. So kind of high speed, like kickboxing, a kickboxer, kind of like that. But also he could also throw the energy blasts at you. So like I tried to think of it like that.
I have a question about Riley. So he's a pathokinetic, right?
Yeah.
So he channels emotion to create like energy, like physical energy. Does that like tax him emotionally, like after a battle?
Yeah. So it kind of like the same idea of like some days you'll just have a day like you're a lot, but your emotions have like just completely spent you. Like that'll happen on a physical and also an emotional level to him. Yeah. So it's like you have to pace yourself, just like in real life. Like you can't like have like just an outburst. You have to channel your emotions like successfully throughout the day.
That's so yes. Cool.
Yeah. But also on top of Riley, like because he's pathokinetic, he can also manipulate the emotions in others and also channel their emotions. Also a good side note to throw out there.
Yeah.
So like as part of like, so like for instance, like the first scenes where like they're stuck in that situation, like him and Rose are obviously going to be like next to each other, like, yeah, we're about to be murdered. So like it'll be explained further, but like unbeknownst to him, he's also channeling Rose's emotions that day. Like he's pulling them into himself to protect the both of them. And like I have a few ideas of where I want to go with that, of like being in other people's heads, but I want to handle that carefully because like being in other people's heads, that's a violation of privacy, and like I'm all about the consent. So I want to, but also it's superpowers, so it's a different thing. But things I think about.
Well, that other character you mentioned, who can kind of control a hive mind.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive stuff. So I feel like that. I'm sure that'll come into play as we go and tie into more of what you're talking about. But
yeah, so Maria is actually kind of like my anti-Riley. So I want Riley to be very hesitant about like messing with other people's like minds and emotions. But because of the things that have happened to Maria, she just doesn't care anymore. So I kind of want like that dichotomy to exist in the story.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and I also like for other reasons, like those two are like Maria's gonna hate Riley. She's gonna hate Riley because Riley, for how young he is, for like how fast he gets his powers in that situation, Riley's gonna be like very abnormally powerful because like people say it all the time, that trauma changes you. Like going through life, your emotions, you're the sum of your emotions, and like trauma changes you. So I wanted to take that idea and be like, so like you're 18 years old, you've gone through plenty of things in life, you have memories, you have emotions, but then like the traumaticness of like watching someone you love die in front of you would be an entire mess of emotions that just got loaded onto you. And like that kind of experience would change you. And in this case, make him dramatically more powerful than other people. So, you know, that's also like a jab I want in there that's going to play into the story a little bit as well.
No, I think that's an excellent yo man, you found your powers on perhaps the saddest day in your life. You know what I mean? And then I like the aspect you've written where it's like, you don't fit into traditional society because your dad was a scumbag. Then you don't fit into the society where you truly belong because your dad was a scumbag. So it's like the sins of the father, that whole thing that follows. You know, so that's very, very interesting. You know, and the other cool, I think, idea is people love their parents, right? Like, whether they're cruel to others or whatever, you don't always see that being their kid. But when they come home, right, you just see them like, oh, that's my dad, that's my mom, right? But what they're really like in the world, you don't realize till you're, like, older.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely going to be part of it, like, uncovering, like, why was my dad doing this? Like, what happened? And, like, this story is getting inspired from a lot of places in my brain because like I grew up, I love watching like cop shows and like unraveling a mystery. Like I just watched 15 seasons of Criminal Minds, so like it's in there. But I've also always loved like the mystical and the magical and like superhero stuff. So like this is kind of like my way to like try to force a lot of those genres together and tell one story. So yeah, but yeah, so that's like the basis for my story. And all right. Dan, did you have any questions?
No, you've touched them all. Yeah.
Okay. So Riley's sibling Donovan is also a police officer. He was a police officer, but in the wake of his father's scandal, he has been fired from the police station because they're just like, oh, we can't, it's bad optics. And he has accepted a job as a security officer for Olympus. So that ties the Olympus and Riley back together because like I guess towards like the climax of my story, Riley is their newest target. They're like, okay, we've seen what this kid can do. He's very powerful. We need to start studying him. So like he's next on the kidnapping list. But the way they've learned about how powerful Riley is, ties back to about 6 months after 6 months to a year after. I haven't really like decided like a hard timeline, but like 6 months to a year after the courthouse or like the mayor's office incident. I want Riley to kind of like go to like, oh, like you know how like we have the Biggie.
Yeah.
So like they're gonna have like their version of like the Biggie, and like Riley and Rose are going out, and like Riley doesn't really want to be there because, you know, the town kind of hates him, you know, a little bit, and it's not just like the town hates him, but because he's pathokinetic, he can also feel the emotions. Like when people are in large group settings, he can like feel like the sea of emotions that are out there, and a lot of the times he can feel it focus on how much everyone hates him. So like he doesn't want to go, but Rose is like, yo, we got to get out, you got to live your life, we're going out. And I want there to kind of be like a fight to ensue, like someone will be like, yo, you don't belong here, like get the fuck out of here, get out of here, you murderer. And that's when I want Spencer and Elle to come into the story. And I want Elle to be like, yo, if you guys are going to fight about this, let's settle this the way metahumans should with a contest. Because I figure one thing that history has told us is that men love contests. Everyone loves contests. And if you add superpowers into the world, they're going to need their own kinds of contests. But again, because I mentioned like property damage is like a big no-go in the modern world, that they've resorted to the kind of like the digital world. So I have this idea for like digital dojos where metahumans can go and they kind of get themselves like virtualized into a world where all like the physics of the world are exactly the same, but you're allowed to be there and use your powers with no limits, no restrictions, because it's all digital. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And with that technology, Elle has developed kind of games and scenarios. So kind of like think of like all your like classic superhero movie stuff, like whether it be like we're breaking into like a top secret laboratory and we gotta like steal this thing, or we gotta stop this space station from crashing into the earth. Like it just like a place where they can create these crazy scenarios and be like, can you work your way out of this with your abilities? So like I want that kind of to be a thing. And for like the first time they use it, I want Riley and Rose to go up against this mystery douchebag who's yelling at them. I might make it Panzer and being like, oh, because word vomit, I got to backtrack. So Al used to work at Olympus, and he developed this technology for them. But when he left, because he was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore with you guys, I'm not about what you're about, he left. He took his tech with him, and he used it to create it so like just the average Joe metahuman could come and learn about his abilities. So I want them to kind of go head to head, and like the movie, like I took a lot of the ideas from like these scenarios from like movies, video games, a bunch of the things we've seen. And the idea that keeps sticking out to me for like the first introduction is, do you guys remember the movie The Matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that scene towards the end where they're going to save Morpheus and they step into that hotel, that the lobby of that building, and they just have to wreck everyone in the lobby? I kind of want something like that for like my first scene. Just like drop Rose and Riley in that room and be like, fight your way to the roof. Well, at the same time, the other guy's trying to do the same thing. And when they all make it to the roof, they have this battle royale where like they're throwing each other off buildings, blasting each other. Rose and Riley are hanging on by the seat of their pants, you know. And I just want them to like, you know, just a chance to let loose and like show how powerful they really are. As Rose being a deadly, deadly teenager inventor, and Riley being a psychic, you know, against Panzer. And just to see how that goes. And that's kind of the catalyst for why Riley popped up on Olympus's radar, because of how well he did in the fight against him. They're like, okay, that kid's not normal. We need to know more about that. So then, like, you know, flash forward a few more weeks, and, you know, they've been working on their skills, learning new abilities, that kind of thing. And then I want them, like, I don't really have a reason for them to be in the woods, but I want the next scene to, like, be in the woods. I spent a lot of time in the woods last year just walking around. I had a lot of ideas. And so I want like Olympus, like an Olympus strike team to like ambush them in the woods, and for them to like, you know, fight their way out of that with like reasonable success, and to like leading into like a big showdown with Panzer in the middle of the forest. Like I'm talking the whole squad's there, you know, Rose, Riley, Spencer, Al fighting through the woods against like Panzer's going to be like the main metahuman who's like running the strike team, but like Olympus also employs non-humans, you know, the classic like stormtrooper package, you know, for every evil organization, because, you know, you got to beat down some stormtroopers no matter where you are. But I want that fight to be interrupted by Apex. I want Apex to like have caught on to what's going on. They're like, yo, we finally figured out the people behind this, and it's Olympus. And because of that, Zephyr's going to be extra pissed because he worked for Olympus and was trying to use their resources to figure out like who did this to his family, to like the people he loved and all the other people. So like for it to come back full circle and be like, it was the people I was working for, like he's pissed. And yeah, and then after that fight, I'm going to have it revealed that, so Maria, as you notice, a few different people in the story are named Monroe. There's Al, there's Spencer, there's Al. And as you may have guessed, they're all siblings. And the person that they all lost was their mom. She was one of the people that was sold through all this stuff, which is, you know, very sad, very terrible. She did indeed die. But Zach is actually going to be her lover. So, you know, he's extra pissed. He's their mom's lover, not like their lover. You know what I'm saying.
I get you.
Yeah. So, you know, extra pissed. So he's going to knock everyone out by sucking all the oxygen out of the woods. You know, he's just going to knock everyone out. And then everyone's going to be kidnapped and taken to the prison where it all began, where the whole conspiracy started. And that's where I want to have my final showdown. You know, throw it like an actual like throw down in the yard to gain respect from the, you know, one of those. So, you know, prison showdown, which is going to be a fun, great time. I have a few ideas for that. A lot of people are going to get thrown into some cells and then thrown out of them. You know, it's going to be a fun time for everyone involved. And then I kind of wanted to end on like a cliffhanger note of they finally like subdued Apex, and Apex was all, you know, you guys just can't be running around acting like a bunch of little wolves who have lost their way. You can't just be a bunch of strays. You need to embrace your power. And they're going to be like, no, we don't need to do that. We can do what we want to do and be the people we want to be. So, you know, that's how the strays things ties back in through like one random quote. But yeah, then I want to end it on like kind of an open-ended note of like, so like all the bad guys will like end up in jail except for Apex. I want them to escape at the last minute. But I want all the bad people to be in jail, but I want like Olympus to be kind of like, that place is sketch and we need to keep in mind. That's kind of like the vibe of the story. That's about so far. I think what it gets like, it looks like 9 like episodes. I'm calling them episodes because I feel like it was easier to like think of this as like, because like WandaVision's out right now. Think of like what's gonna happen in each like episode. So when I'm looking at it, it's like 9 chapters, but I'm probably gonna have to split that up a little bit. But yeah, that's what I got so far.
Damn. Just damn.
Yeah.
Dan, before I have any, drop some questions, do you have anything you'd like to say beforehand, or?
Well, I was going to ask Rob, like, do you want any, like, particular type of feedback, or are you just, like, run with it, run your mouth like a faucet, like, go?
Let me know what you think. Tell me all your words.
Do I have words? I thought, Rob, like, for someone who last we spoke, you were like, oh, it's just like a little idea. Like you literally just painted out like it could be 9 episodes. It could be like 3 books. Like that was a lot of story that you've just like thrown at us. And I don't know. I love how precise you are with all of like the power stuff and how it's also kind of like rooted in like these tropes, but also like the characters themselves, you know what I mean? You're trying to do like something unique with them, even if it's something like we've seen, like you said. Yeah, I don't know. Damn. Stefan, help me out here.
No, I think you've laid out a lot of really cool, thoughts that I already had, or thought in my head, and you said them, so you're probably using one of those powers Rob was talking about. Or I'm latching onto the hive mind, and I'm like, damn, what's Dan thinking? I'm going to use that. But no, man, like Dan just said, like the amount of research and time you've put into like figuring out these powers, or like, hey, I like how that's utilized, here's how I'm going to use it to make it my twist on it, right? Like that's really cool, and I'm really just stealing what Dan said. But my other questions for you, and perhaps, this is part of the cliffhanger, but is Donovan a bad guy, right? Because I know he's working for Olympus, so does that
No. Like, Donovan's like my heart of gold, just like regular Joe. Like, Donovan's like the like my quintessential good guy. Like, he was a police officer because he's like someone who actually believes in like protecting and serving and like all that kind of stuff. And like, he's so something I didn't mention about Riley is like Riley is adopted. I'm throwing a little bit of my history in there. Riley is adopted, and Donovan is like his older brother, and like he loves Riley. He always loved Riley. Blood of my blood. That kind of thing. And like, no, he's just like my quintessential good guy. And I do plan for him to be like kidnapped in the final thing too, and like Apex would be like, another betrayer, kill him, Riley. And it's like, bro, what are you saying? Like kind of like choose your own people over the humans who you owe nothing. Like kind of one of those like plot decisions. So yeah, no, Donovan, good guy, 100% good guy.
I'm very interested in that right there, that moment where it's like, look, here's a traitor, prove yourself to us, and then it's like, oh, guess you're going to be disappointed, metahumans. Like, that just seems like there's so much emotional tension as well as, like, physical tension as well. So I look forward to how that'll play out. The other thing, you mentioned wolves, right? That last line, right? You can't just run around like a lot of wolves who have lost their way, like some strays or something. And you mentioned that you got some of your thoughts from what they did in Yellowstone with wolves, right? So it's like that seems to be a was that on purpose or just happened to be something that came about?
That was kind of like the idea for like Apex, like that. I kind of wanted that always to be their mentality, but like if I wanted to tie like wolves into it specifically, the power I was gonna give like Spencer's mother was she was a shapeshifter, and like the shape she took was wolves. So like to like tie it in like another level.
Yeah,
It's awesome. I also love the names that you've come up with too. Like Apex kind of like perfectly captures that, like that wolf mentality. Like, oh, we, like you said with Yellowstone, how they just brought in all the wolves and, the place flourished. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I loved how precise you were with the names, and even when you were like Riley, nobody likes the name Riley, but I'm sticking with it. Like, I'm all about that life. This is your story, Rob. Yeah, I don't know. You've crafted such an interesting mystery too. Like, I really do think you've blended a lot of different stories. I see the Criminal Minds in here. I do see like the CSI procedural thing, and I see a lot of superhero stuff, a lot of like the Matrix part. So I'm just digging all of these inspirations, and you've really like tied them together in a new way. So kudos.
Thank you.
No, yeah, man.
When are we going to see this, Rob?
Oh, well, now that I've had like actually gotten things together, I think I'm going to try and start writing. Like, I don't know, like the speed at which I write, because I've never been a writer. I've always been creative, but like I've never been a writer. But so like the actually writing this down and like being happy with it is probably going to take me a while. But like I will definitely try to keep you guys updated, like when I finish stuff.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know how long it's going to take.
Take the time you need, but also give us a full report.
Yeah, dude. And then, like, you mentioned the cliffhanger, right? So, obviously, that means the story's not done. And I know you said 9 episodes. I know Dan dropped possibly 3 books or however long it may go. Do you have a precise, like, finish line where you're like, I know how it ends, but do you have an idea how long it'll take you to get to that?
I'm a sucker for a classic trilogy. So I feel like within 3 stories, but like I feel like it's a world where I could get more stories out of it, just like switch perspective. Because like even like the other day I was thinking about like Japanese fucking kitsune and how like they're trickster spirits. So like what if I wanted to incorporate like a gang who based their whole way they use their abilities around being tricksters and being and like stealing and like almost like a thieves guild. So like I don't know. I have a bunch of weird ideas, but I think Riley's story could be told in 3 stories.
And then going with that, and I agree, like you have a world, right? You're not just doing one story, you're building a world, right? So like you're saying you're not sure how long it'll take. Well, it's because you're building a world.
Yeah.
God arguably did it in what, 7 days or 6 or something. So you just did that in 40 minutes or a little less. My question then, Olympus, right, as a possible spin-off, is that something you might perhaps develop, right? Like you hinted like, oh, Mount Olympus, I don't want to use, secret society, but perhaps like how they evolved, right? Like is there some member who's been like the elder and like has seen it come to its time?
So one of the ideas I had with that is like, so like the original Greek pantheon, like the 12 main gods, I had like this weird idea, like they were all metahumans, but they never actually died. Like they created like this weird pocket world. Like every few centuries they like pop back in and like make sure things are running well. So it's like, that's like a weird idea I'm playing with. It's like eventually like they're going up against like the Greek gods, but like, I don't know how I'd get there, but like that's a weird idea I had, just like throwing out Olympus. Because like I grew up reading like Rick Riordan's books for like Percy Jackson and all that. So like, Greek mythology is something I've always loved. And like I could see it like change through the lens of like them being like metahumans. I could see it in my head, but I just have to like figure out how to incorporate it.
So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that it might be a spin-off that focuses on that.
No, yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
I'm excited.
1 sec. I have to hit.
Just damn.
Seriously, he spit a lot of fire today.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't even. It's just like, whoa. Just whoa.
Yeah, so everybody get prepared.
Everybody, you're witnessing. Hopefully, whatever medium this is, books, comics, episodes, which what have you. But it's just gonna be,
Sorry, my dog was at my door. Deal with that.
brownie or chocolate.
It was brownie.
Oh.
Yeah. He comes down when he's bored. He looks for me.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, that's what I got so far.
Well, me and Dan were just talking, well, briefly, but just like, really, dude, damn. Just damn.
Yeah. Rob, I really love that main story, but like even those little side stories that you just pitched, I was just like, damn, that's so interesting, like a trickster heist sort of thing. Super interesting. You've got a lot of ideas in this world.
Yeah, I spend, kind of, but I just usually don't write them down, but like this story stuck in my head and I just got to get it out of my brain.
Please do.
Share it with everyone. And then make millions.
Yeah, we'll see about that, but this is a good start.
Absolutely, man. But like, yeah, you're like this, I mean, I'm not trying to overly flatter you, but like, world building, right? It just takes one thing. You know what I mean? Like George Lucas made Star Wars, and it's like what, the 50th something year of Star Wars or something like that, 25th maybe.
Is it? Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
something like that.
The 70s.
Something like that. I'm not good at math, but my point being, it's lasted that long. You know what I mean? So you don't know. This is just a conversation with some ideas, but like, you don't know. There's a lot of room for you to play in this world, and we're very interested in seeing what happens with that, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys for like listening to me ramble for 40 minutes.
Thank you for rambling. Seriously, Rob, if you ever start writing something and you want to share it, I know you're in touch with Stefan a lot, but like, take my email. I will read it and I will give you whatever you need.
Definitely will. Yeah. Thank you guys for the time. Thank you.
Of course, man. I hope you come back soon. Maybe, perhaps, like, obviously, if you started this, but you got some of those, like, those were just 2 quick pitches, Olympus, Kitsune, Thief Gang, right? Like, some side story you want to explore more? Would love to hear more about that, or, like, book 2 or 3 or 7, whatever is on your mind. That'd be dope.
All right, thank you. Yeah, definitely. This is a very new thing, like, actually like, putting my ideas out in the world, but, like, this is very good like questions and stuff, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Now, Rob, do you want to do our signature sign-off?
What is the signature sign-off?
You just got pitch slapped.
Yes, thanks everyone for watching. You have been pitch slapped.
Yeah. He did it. Okay. You're one of us now.